My name is Christopher Renstrom, and I'm your weekly horoscope columnist here on Astrology Hub. And this week, I wanted to talk to you about Mars entering the zodiac sign of Aries on May 24th, and then conjoining Jupiter, already in the sign of Aries, on May 29th. Mars. Do we really have to deal with Mars again? Mars, the planet that's always itching for a fight. Mars, the planet that's always in the center of a controversy. Mars, the planet that's always laughing at people trying to attack or upset it. And Mars, that's always looking for another new and fresh confrontation. Mars is always taking punches at the next person. It's the planet with sharp elbows and heavy stomping feet. It has no problem stomping on the feet or kicking other people in the knees in order to get what it wants. Mars is basically the bad boy planet of the zodiac. That's if you're looking at Mars on a good day. On a not so good day, Mars is the planet that is all about conflict and conquering and beating someone down. Named after the Roman god of war, Mars has a gladiatorial view of what life is like. And if you were a gladiator in the time of the Roman Empire, life depended on you taking out whoever was going up against you with sword and shield. But Mars has a very important function to play in each person's horoscope. Yes, Mars is a ruthless planet. Mars will not take no for an answer, and Mars will fight to the end. But you want a ruthless planet like that on your side and in your horoscope, because without a strong Mars in your horoscope, well, you're going to get walked on. You're going to get beaten down. You're going to get beaten up or called out or defeated. Mars is the planet that makes sure that you come first. All right, so we begin with our sun, which is the expression of who we are in our horoscope. The sun is basically everything we know about ourselves to be true. And then Mars in your horoscope says, damn right. Okay, so Mars is basically going to go and make sure that your sun, no matter what it wants, what it desires, gets what it wants. So Mars is kind of like your own personal cosmic sergeant at arms or enforcer who's making sure that you get the things that you want out of life. Because if you don't come first, according to Mars's point of view, then that means somebody else will. Mars pushes, especially in Aries. And there's always that feeling of, when you're around someone who's got a Mars in Aries, if you start to talk at the same time, they start to get a little louder and make their point a little stronger than the one that you're making. Okay. If you're the one who hasn't really quite spoken up, they'll talk right on over you. If you're standing in the way of something they want, they'll push you out of the way. So Mars is the planet of sharp elbows and stomping feet. In fact, Mars has no problem stomping on the feet of other people in order to get what it wants. Now, bear in mind that Mars is different in each one of the zodiac signs that it appears. Mars in Gemini, for instance, is going to be very different from a Mars in Libra or a Mars in Pisces. But Mars is very much at home in the zodiac sign of Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. The reason Aries is the first sign of the zodiac is Aries is the first sign of the agricultural season here in the Northern Hemisphere. So Aries is all about beginning and having a strong start, taking the lead, maintaining that lead, and coming in first over the finish line. So these qualities of Aries are going to be magnified that now that Mars is in its own zodiac sign. So Mars in Aries is by nature dissatisfied. Okay, Mars in in Aries is very desirous of achieving its ends. If the starting gun goes off, they're the first ones out of the gate, and they will rush out in front, and they will maintain that lead, as I just said, until they are the first ones over the finish line. Now, that doesn't mean that they're adverse to pushing the runners out of the way or elbowing them in the side in order to get what they want. Okay, Mars in Aries is very focused on its end, and its end is to win. Its end is to come in first. But Mars, as I said, is by its nature dissatisfied. Although in Aries, its nature is very urgent, okay, and it's very fast, and it's all about being first. There's something about Mars in Aries that always finds the satisfaction somehow dissatisfying, the gratification somewhat empty. Even if it achieves its end, even if it wins, there's something about it that's just missing. It doesn't bring the promised high. It doesn't bring the promised zeal. It doesn't bring the promised excitement. In fact, Mars in Aries can often find accomplishing or finishing things to be rather disappointing. Puts me in mind of that Peggy Lee song, "Is That All There Is?" Even if they come out on top and in that moment, and it's always about being in that moment of zeal and excitement of like, yeah, I'm on top, after that moment, it's like, so what? Well, what else can we go on to? So it's always looking for something else, or it's looking for something new. But it's not really looking for something else or looking for something new in the vein, for instance, of Gemini, which is always about something that's fresh and new and different and exciting, and a variation on something that is predictable. Okay, Gemini is like new things in those regards. But for Aries, what it is that they're looking for that thrill. They're looking for that sustained excitement. And the thrill and the excitement can be sustained to an extent in terms of your athletic performance, or going after the things that you want, or wrestling an opponent down to the ground, but if you win quickly, if you win easily, if the person you're up against is kind of like a pushover, Mars in Aries is like, they're rather dissatisfied with it. But if you resist a Mars in Aries, but if you are standoffish with a Mars in Aries, if you do not fold with a Mars in Aries, if you do not recognize a Mars in Aries, well, that's the thing that makes you very exciting to a Mars in Aries, okay? Because your resistance, your refusal to acknowledge them or to recognize them, this is the thing that gets them like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun, okay? Because it gets them thinking in terms of a fight. It gets them thinking in terms of a contest. And that is what keeps a Mars in Aries excited, okay? So to some degree, there is the gladiatorial element of wanting to win a fight. But if a fight is easily won, or let's say an opponent, throws down the white flag and says, I give up, they're like, so what? Okay, they want something that really engages them, something where they really, really lock horns with an opponent, because an opponent for Mars in Aries is almost like a best friend. It's someone who really knows their strengths and weaknesses. It's someone who will not flatter them or make them feel comfortable with themselves. It's someone who's always egging them on, or finding, the little sweet spot and giving a little twist with a cutting remark or snide aside. Okay, so these are the things that can irritate a Mars in Aries, but also excite a Mars in Aries. So Mars and Aries are very into their opponents. I'm not quite ready to say that they're into their enemies, but they're certainly into their opponents. There's a sort of trustworthiness about someone who's going to go against you, who's going to try to best you. And really the best or the most honest parts of yourself are going to come out. So fighting. as you probably already have assumed, fighting is a big part for Mars in Aries. And fighting in some regards is more important than even the accomplishment or the trophy itself. I mean, they could line up a shelf full of trophies and they could care less. It's always about the one that got away, or the one that remains undefeated, or the one that they're certain is laughing about them behind their backs. You know, that one opponent, that one person who resisted. This is the one who excites the Mars in Aries. Now, you don't have to have a Mars in Aries, for this to be relevant or appropriate to you. Mars in Aries, because it's going there by transit, is going to impact you somewhere in your astrological chart. Now, it may impact you in a benevolent way, which might be in an air sign, for instance. Not Libra, because Libra is opposite Aries, but it might benefit you if, for instance, it's appearing in the zodiac signs of Gemini or Aquarius. You might get more of an adrenaline rush, of course, with Mars going through your own sign if you're an Aries, but also if you're a fire sign like Leo or Sagittarius, it's going to light a fire underneath you. And where Leos aren't always trying to achieve higher ground, or where Sagittarians can have big ideas of the things that they want to do, with a Mars in Aries, the Mars in Aries reminds the lion that it's not going to eat if it doesn't take down that antelope. It's not going to eat if it doesn't take down that wildebeest. So that's the light, the fire under the feet, the fire under the tuchus that gets the lion roaring and running and taking down that wildebeest or taking down that antelope. So in other words, if you're Leo, if you really want something, that Mars in Aries is going to really motivate you. Probably because if you don't get it, then the opportunity may pass you by, or you may be left hungry. During this period of time, if you're a Sagittarius, where the Mars in Aries is going to help out, is Sagittarius, as I said, can be full of big ideas, the things that they want to do one day. And Mars in Aries says to the Sagittarian sun, that day is today. That time is now. You've got to act on it immediately. Okay, because with Mars in Aries, everything is now. Now, as you might imagine, Mars in Aries may have conflicts with the cardinal signs. It may have conflicts with the water signs or the earth signs. Mars in Aries for the water signs brings the water to a boil. Okay, so there can be things that you might be very upset about, and a feeling of, I'm not going to take this anymore, and I want to do something about it. Or if you're an earth sign, the Mars in Aries may affect you in such a way that it's this sense of urgency that's making you want to act right now, and you may feel almost like you're resisting it in some way, especially with Taurus, of like sort of slowing down that energy, because it's like, I know that I have to act on it, but I've got my plans, I've got things mapped out in front of me, and I'm not really convinced that it's now. And of course, Mars in Aries is going to say, it's now, it's now, it's now, get to it. Okay, so that's what it does. And so everyone's going to be reacting in their own sort of way. But if we take a couple of steps back and look at Mars in Aries, and we look at the nature of fighting and of combat and of contest, which are all things that are associated to Mars in Aries, if we take a couple of steps back and we take another look at that, what we're going to recognize about Mars in Aries is this extraordinary contradiction. On one hand, Mars in Aries will bring out the soldierly qualities in a chart and in a personality. Mars, as I mentioned before, is named after the Roman god of war, and Mars in Aries is very much identified with the role of being a soldier, stepping into line, following orders, and take that hill. Okay, so on one hand, there's a regimentation to Mars in Aries. I need to be part of this battle unit, or I need to be part of this unit or group that's battling or fighting for something. And each of us has a role to play, and there is definitely a hierarchy of command. Okay, so it's not Uranian in a sense of just overthrowing things and grabbing a pitchfork and saying down with the Bastille or something like that. It's regimented. It's it's drawing up in lines and it's taking aim. Okay, so either as a Mars and Aries, the energy can work independently, you know, kind of like a star athlete, but on another level, and where it more often shows up that I see, or shows up just as well, just as much is actually what I should say, is in a regimentation, standing in rank and file and following orders. Okay, so there's that idea of Mars in Aries. But then what also shows up with Mars and Aries, something that I think is very relevant to our times right now, and I think it's very fascinating, is Mars in Aries is an enemy of complacency. All right. Now, Mars already is an enemy of complacency, but Mars in Aries is a real enemy of complacency. Okay, Mars in Aries is really like, you know, against fat cat syndrome. Okay, it really has a problem with that, with people who are settled, with people who are above it all, with people who are removed from the action. They're removed from the arena and playing with the lives of those who are beneath them. You know, Mars and Aries, you know, cannot stand that. Or where people have sort of, you know, not grown fat physically, you know, but grown fat in their complacency, in their laziness. They've accepted this way of being. They've accepted this way of living. They take things for granted. Okay, and this is fascinating when we put it sort of into the animal kingdom. And I'm going to borrow the lion here to make a point. When you put it in the animal kingdom, you know, everyone really sort of wants or envisions, you know, or wants to, we all like those moments on Animal Planet or National Geographic or whatever, where the animals are frolicking, or maybe they're gathering at a watering hole and the lion and the antelope are both licking from the water and everything seems to be complacent. You know, we have these images or these desires for a peaceable kingdom, but we know full well that that's not the way that the animal kingdom works. Okay, and then there's going to be those parts in the episode where, you know, the wildebeest or the zebra is killed in the most horrific way, or the polar bear doesn't get the seal that it was going for, and now it's like on an ice floe and it's going to die of starvation or something like this. You know, these dreadful moments where like, why does it have to be like that? But for the animal kingdom, things aren't taken care of, you know, in a shopping cart or by a grocery store. They have to actually go out and get their kill. And this is what Mars appears as. You know, it's the, you know, even though we might be clicking on our you know, little shopping carts online and ordering things and stuff like that, we still have that animal impulse within us. Okay, and it's often regarded as being a lower impulse, but not necessarily. It may actually be a rather high or at times even higher impulse, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That idea of the predatory. What do predators do? You know, what is their function? I mean, you've got animals who eat grass, and that's lovely. And then you've got animals who eat animals that are eating the grass, and that's predatory. And that can be a little bit off-putting. But what they do is that, first of all, they kind of control the populace of the grazing animals. Okay, that's on, you know, that's a basic level. But what they do is that they sort of like balance the environment. Okay, they take out the weak, they take out the sick, which isn't so nice. But they balance the environment and they sort of like clean it out, and everyone is connected to everyone else in this kind of ecosystem. Now, we're going to jump into the metaphor part of this. When we think of Mars and Aries as being an adversary, being against complacency, what can happen in society when it becomes complacent is that you can have certain areas of society that feel like this is the way it's always going to be, and this is lovely, this is nice, this is my peaceable kingdom, and I believe that everyone should believe this, everyone should do that, and everyone should abide by option C. And if we do all of these things, this is going to be a really lovely society. Okay, but there are parts of society that aren't invited to that vision of plenty. There are parts of society that are on the outskirts of it. There are parts of society that are seen as weaker, or as being too extreme, or as being far-fetched, or as pushing their agenda, or as just making trouble, or as having this kind of ridiculous view of the world that they're trying to impose on everyone else. Okay, this is an ongoing conversation that takes place in society, because it's those who get to the top of basically the power pyramid, or the pyramid of privilege, or the way that things should be done, who are complacent. This is what's been done for 10 years. This is what's been done for 50 years. This is what's been done for hundreds of years. This is what's been done for centuries. Okay, so there's a kind of complacency that sort of sets the parameters of a society in a very exact way and shuts everybody out. Not only does it shut everybody out, but it's often built on the backs of other people who aren't invited to the table, or who are working for those who are in these positions, and things like this. And this is a conversation that's been going on since the beginning of history. But when I say that Mars in Aries is an enemy of complacency, Mars in Aries is very quick to point out to the people who have grown complacent, maybe there's a reason you're being challenged right now. Maybe there's a reason why others are trying to overthrow you right now. Maybe there's a reason why people are trying to make a place for themselves at the table right now. It's because you haven't, you won this place, but you're not doing anything to keep it. You may not deserve it. You may not be honorable. You may not be strong enough. You may not be powerful enough. You may not care about the things that have been given to you. And so you've grown complacent. So this is where Mars in Aries is always basically striking up a conflict, lighting the spark of a fight. Okay. And it's something that we can see, in society, but it's also something that we can recognize in our own personal lives. And fighting, by the way, isn't always, putting on a military helmet and grabbing a gun and going and shooting the enemy. We have, in, for instance, the history of the United States of America, seen an extraordinary fight that was done under the rules of not engaging the other side in a violent way. And an example of this, a very proud American example of this, is the example of civil rights and this fight for civil rights in this country, in which Martin Luther King Jr. made his followers not be violent. Everything was done by not fighting back. And so we still have footage of African Americans being humiliated at lunch counters that they weren't allowed to visit as an equal citizen, where dogs have been unleashed on them, or fire hoses have been unleashed on them, and where they took it. They basically they took it. It was coming out of a very Mars and Aries spirit, which is, I'm not going to take it anymore, okay? Because that's why they were placing their lives in these precarious and dangerous situations. The spirit was, I'm not going to take it anymore. But instead of fighting with fists or taking out guns and turning this into a war being fought on the streets, it was done through this extraordinary Aries example of peace. Okay. I mean, it wasn't peace like without conflict or whatever, but peace as in, I am asserting my place at the table. I am asserting my place as an equal citizen in this country. Wrong has been done to me, and I am going to assert my rights and my privileges. And so this is where you see something really fascinating happen in the spirit of Mars and Aries. It's that kind of switch or shift or transition from aggression, which is, that's what I want, I'm going to take it and make it mine, to assertion. Okay, I was granted these rights, and so I'm now going to assert my rights. And this is fascinating when you remember that the fellow who wrote All Men Are Created Equal was born under the zodiac sign of Aries, and then to hear, to see that taken up so many years later. But this is an example of how you can fight to assert, how you can fight to assert your rights, how you can fight to assert your place. So all fights don't have to take place at the OK Corral, okay? All fights don't have to involve guns or something along those lines. You can also fight to assert, okay? And that is something in which Mars and Aries becomes, in my opinion, most noble. But it is also a reminder to people who've grown complacent. It's a reminder to people who think, oh, I don't have to fight for this anymore, or I don't have to care about this, or, what do I care about this? It's a reminder that complacency makes you weak. Okay, and that you can be taken down as a result of it. And in some cases, complacency should be taken down, especially if it is prolonging something which is not serving the overall good. So this is as I said, this is an ongoing conversation. And this is the thing that I love about astrology, is because the planets are always changing their place in the sky. They're moving through different zodiac signs, and so they're expressing themselves differently according to each sign that they move through, and then they're forming alignments to other planets, which also gets them to behave or express themselves differently. What you'll notice, and we all know this because we all look to see what the upcoming transit is for our horoscope this week, what you notice is that it is not a static sky. Life isn't static, and the sky isn't static. The planets aren't telling you what you have to be. The planets are going to be introducing issues, situations into your life. Is this a good time? Is this a bad time? Is this a time to assert? Is this perhaps a time to accommodate? And with Mars and Aries, it's not really a time to accommodate. And this is going to be very fascinating with how it interacts with the signs who are used to accommodating. Okay, now one would think, okay, this is going to make the Pisces and the Cancers of the world roll over and take it, become the doormat or be the wildebeest or something along those lines. But I've actually seen very different things happen when Mars is going through Aries with those two signs. I sort of took them as an example. But I always say Mars in Aries is not for the faint of heart. But what's actually really fascinating to see happen when Mars is in Aries is how the faint of heart show off a side of themselves which no one suspected or expected to come out. In other words, the faint of heart can all of a sudden get very assertive in what they do. The faint of heart suddenly rise to an occasion. The faint of heart suddenly say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But that doesn't mean that they take out a firearm or something like that. That means that they have the toughness to stand their ground, to get the coffee cup dumped over their head, to get the hose or the dog or whatever. They stand the ground and they don't give up that ground. They don't give up their place. They don't give up what they feel is right. They don't give up what has been promised to them. So they go and they assert themselves. They make sure that a pledge or a promise is kept. And this is often what I will see happen when Mars enters the zodiac sign of Aries. So Mars will conjoin Jupiter on May 29th. And with Jupiter, you have a planet that will always feed the flames of excitement and passion. And with Mars, you have a planet which pushes the envelope as far as it can go and takes risks. And so this combination of passion and excitement, pushing the envelope and taking risks, this is an energy that's going to be coursing through everyone's horoscopes. Now, for those who are comfortable with this idea, they're going to pretty much, push the limit. But what's going to be really, to see what they can get, and some will get it and some will push too far. But it's going to be very interesting to see this energy mix it with the energies of horoscopes that tend to be more low profile or more low key. What you always want to do when you've got Mars and Jupiter together in Aries, what you always want to do and be is audacious. Okay, you want to be more than what you would usually be, and you want to assert yourself in that way. But again, better to assert than to aggress or get into a fight or make a grab. What I'm talking about is really the assertion of what your rights are, or the assertion of what you believe is due you, so that you can enter into a vigorous conversation about how that is going to happen. So these are things that are going to be very, very exciting, I think, to see. And Mars will bring this out in everyone. So we'll see what sort of comes on out to the fore. And the period of time when Mars is in Aries, and you will be dealing with the sort of upsurge of, wow, where did my inner gladiator, come from? That period of time is likened to Mars in Aries, and Mars will be in the zodiac sign of Aries through July 5th.